Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm sharing a story that's still pretty wild for me to retell, even after all this time. It's a story about hitting rock bottom, feeling completely blindsided, and then finding an unexpected way to fight back. If you've ever felt like the world was unfairly stacked against you, then this one's for you. So, let's rewind a bit. Not too long ago, I was working at a small but thriving marketing firm right here in the heart of Chicago. It wasn't some huge, flashy corporation, but I genuinely loved what I did. I poured my heart into every project, every campaign, and I was good at it. Like, really good. I took pride in seeing our clients succeed, in crafting messages that resonated, and in building strong relationships. I felt like I was on a solid path, building a career I could truly be proud of. But, as it often happens in life, there was a snag. His name was Greg. Greg was one of those middle-aged managers who just couldn't stomach the idea of someone younger, especially a woman, finding success and recognition. He was the quintessential corporate chameleon, all smiles and camaraderie to your face, but always with a hidden agenda. You know the type, right? The kind of guy who would clap you on the back one minute and then, given the chance, wouldn't hesitate to pull the rug out from under you. When I first joined the company, he used to call me Kiddo. It felt a little condescending, sure, but I brushed it off as just his way. He even seemed almost paternal in a weird way. But that changed. The moment I landed my first big client, a major win for the firm, his tone shifted. He started calling me hotshot, but the way he said it wasn't a compliment. It was dripping with sarcasm, a thinly veiled resentment that grew more palpable with each success I achieved. Things really took a turn for the worse after a significant company-wide meeting. Our CEO, a brilliant woman I deeply admired, singled me out for praise in front of everyone. She highlighted my innovative strategies and my dedication, acknowledging the positive impact I was having on our client portfolio. Greg was sitting just a few seats away, and I saw his fake smile falter, then completely disappear. It was a fleeting moment, but it stuck with me. A cold dread settled in my stomach, whispering that something wasn't right. And sure enough, that feeling was absolutely spot on. A week later, the subtle sabotage began. First, it was the impossible deadlines. Projects that typically required a month's work were suddenly due in a week, sometimes less. He'd load my plate with an unreasonable amount of tasks, setting me up for failure from the start. Then, when I inevitably couldn't meet those unrealistic expectations, he'd blame me. "You're not managing your time effectively," he'd say, or, "This is a priority, you should have focused better." It was infuriating. Then came the forgetfulness. Important client emails would mysteriously go unforwarded. Critical meeting invites would somehow never make it to my inbox. When I'd try to follow up, asking for information I never received, he'd just shrug and say, "Oh, I must have forgotten. You really need to be more careful, you know. Pay attention to the details." He was slowly, systematically, building a case against me. Every minor oversight, every missed comma in an email, every tiny mistake was meticulously documented, weaponized, and filed away. It felt like walking on eggshells, constantly aware that every step I took was being scrutinized, waiting for me to slip up. The atmosphere at work became unbearable. I started dreading going into the office, feeling a constant knot of anxiety in my stomach. I lost sleep, I lost my appetite, and my passion for the job, which had once been so vibrant, started to dwindle under the weight of his relentless negativity. I tried to talk to HR, vaguely describing the toxic environment, but without concrete evidence of harassment, they just offered platitudes about resolving workplace conflicts and communication being key. It felt like I was screaming into a void. Then, one Monday morning, the final hammer dropped. I was called into HR, not for a chat, not for a review, but for an investigation. My stomach plummeted. They sat me down, two stern-faced HR reps, and then dropped the bombshell. I was being investigated for data misuse. Greg, they explained, had claimed I shared a confidential client report outside the company. My head spun. It was a complete lie. I hadn't done it. The thought of betraying a client's trust or jeopardizing my professional integrity was unthinkable. But the evidence, they said, was undeniable. They showed me screenshots, complete with timestamps, showing the report being accessed and allegedly shared from my computer. There was even an IP address that matched my personal laptop, the one I sometimes used for remote work. I was speechless. How? How could this be happening? It felt like a scene straight out of a movie, an elaborate frame-up. I denied everything, pleading my innocence, but their faces remained impassive. They suspended me, immediately. No pay, no explanation beyond the vague, pending investigation. They walked me out that day, my badge already deactivated. As I gathered my personal belongings from my desk, feeling utterly numb, Greg walked past. He caught my eye, and a slow, cruel smirk spread across his face. "Tough luck, kiddo," he murmured, his voice dripping with triumphant malice. I felt utterly destroyed. My reputation, which I had worked so hard to build, was in tatters. My income, my livelihood, gone. My dignity shattered into a million pieces. The shame, the anger, the feeling of utter helplessness. It was overwhelming. I tried appealing the decision, emailing HR with a desperate plea to reconsider, to look deeper. I even reached out to the CEO, explaining the situation from my perspective, hoping she'd remember her praise for me, hoping she'd see through Greg's lies. But nothing worked. Greg had done his homework. He had meticulously built his case, crafted his narrative, and ensured that I looked undeniably guilty. The days that followed were a blur of despair. I felt lost, adrift, unsure of what to do next. My career, my future, everything I had planned seemed to evaporate in an instant. I kept replaying every interaction, every conversation, every detail, trying to understand how this nightmare had become my reality. I felt defeated, truly and completely. But then, as I was finally clearing out my desk for good, packing up the last few personal items that HR had allowed me to retrieve, a tiny spark of memory flickered. It was a month or so prior Greg had come to me, looking uncharacteristically flustered. He was struggling to set up a new analytics system, something for a new client presentation, and he asked for my help. He knew I was pretty tech-savvy. To help him efficiently, I had used a remote access tool. You know, the kind that lets you control another computer from yours. I'd connected to his computer to test some client dashboards, making sure everything was configured correctly. It was a quick fix, just a few minutes of my time. He thanked me profusely then, relieved that his presentation wouldn't be derailed, and that was it. I hadn't thought about it again. But now, staring at the empty monitor on my desk, the memory clicked into place. The remote access tool. I had installed it on his machine, temporarily, to get the job done. And I realized something crucial. He had never deactivated my access. A tiny glimmer of hope, a desperate possibility began to form in my mind. Could this be it? Could this be the key to unlocking the truth? This wasn't just about getting my job back anymore. This was about clearing my name, about reclaiming my reputation, and about making sure Greg couldn't do this to anyone else. It was about fighting back, not just for myself, but for every kiddo and hotshot who deserved to succeed without fear of sabotage. The fight wasn't over. It had just begun. This story really taught me the importance of resilience, and that even when things seem absolutely hopeless, there might just be a hidden piece of the puzzle waiting to be discovered. Sometimes the answers are right there, hiding in plain sight. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you ever faced something similar? How did you deal with it? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this story compelling, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more true stories, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on what happens next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.